2012, went on my first cross-country trip in the old Greyhound, going to visit JD Blackfoot at his home in Columbus. From there, we joined him and Eileen, had a great time going cross-country again over into Washington, D.C., and where he grew up in Maryland. I was excited to go on this trip with my dad and longtime friend Casey Sutton, just because I know Casey's been around the music business for a long time. He has a lot of credibility. He's taken a lot of bands to where they should go with major companies and all that, so I was pretty anxious to spend some guy time with my dad and, you know, one of his best friends in the bus, and I was getting to travel for the first time, so I was really anxious to do that.
And where are we going? Columbus in Washington, D.C.
It was good to travel with Dylan and Casey. Good traveling group.
Once my dad told me it was for JD Blackfoot's 50th year high school reunion, I was even more excited. I mean, who doesn't like JD's music? I've heard about it since, you know, I knew what I was hearing pretty much. I always liked JD's music. I like traveling. I like hanging out with my dad. So when we started our trip, driving all the way through Illinois, going into Indiana, which took a pretty long time to do so. We made a stop in Terre Haute. Pulled into this nice little rest stop and finally stretched the legs out after a couple hours, and as soon as we think we're getting back into the bus to continue our journey, the bus doesn't start.
Yeah, we come out of the rest stop, jump in, hit the button, nothing. Thing won't start. So we jump out, open the cargo bay, fire up the generator, plug in the battery charger, kick up to 50 amp. A couple minutes, thing fired right up. And it started fine the rest of the trip. I guess 2 hours across the state of Illinois wasn't enough to get it fully charged.
And got her back up and running. We're back on the road in 15 minutes or so.
Oh, we drove all the way across Indiana. We're thinking we're going to take it all the way to Columbus that night, but it got to be the other side of Indiana to get 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. We tried to get a campground. We stayed at the KOA in Richmond.
The campground we stayed at in Indiana was a real nice one. We pulled up there at night and it was all lit up and looked real nice and real cozy. Each area, you know, was pretty separated from the other one. We ended up picking another campground off the internet to Ohio called the Alton Campground, which happened to be only a couple miles away from JD Blackfoot's house. So as we pull up, we get greeted by the little old lady named Sue who walks us into her home. It's her home, and pretty much all the lot around her is the campground. And we didn't know it at the time, but it's more or less for people who are working in the area. Campground of Alton wasn't too bad. I still felt at home there, being in the bus with my dad, and you know, we didn't really need much, just to hang out and talk and play music, and JD kept us busy, that's for sure. So in Ohio, JD made us feel welcomed and showed us around where he had grown up. Took us to his childhood home on a street that looks like it'd be out of a movie, with all the trees hanging over the street and wind blowing and all that, and you hear kids laughing. He took us there and we got to talking about things, and he showed us, you know, the lake where he would go fishing and where he actually had inspiration for one of his songs. From there, you know, we were discussing about how we're going to get to Maryland and what's the most efficient way of doing so, riding in the bus and going over the Smoky Mountains, which, you know, sounded adventurous, but, you know, at the same time we don't really know what to expect. So we, as a group, you know, we all figured it was best if we rode with JD and Eileen out to Maryland to his high school in Laurel. In addition to going to Laurel, Maryland for the 50th year reunion, we also went to Washington, D.C., which was not too far and an exciting factor for me to go into the nation's capital. And I know it meant a lot to JD also to go to that Veterans Memorial Wall and, you know, reminisce on his friend from high school, John Kramer, who we actually went and saw his name on the wall, and, you know, JD's written a song in dedication to him, and, you know, that was really hard to see him do that. And I know he's glad that he got to do that again and be there with his friend. JD Blackfoot had actually played a concert there at the Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. for their 20th reunion for the song he wrote, Missing You in St. Louis.
I came here in 2002 to play Missing You in St. Louis at the 20th anniversary dedication of the wall. And then we donated the song for the wall to use on their CD that they sell in their shop to raise funds for the upkeep of the wall.
The Vietnam War had been fought and over long before I'd even been born, and you know, I'd never really thought about it too much, but realizing, you know, how big of an impact that has made on my life and even on my father's life, though he didn't serve in the war, he does know people who did, and just the fact that those, you know, those kids, those boys serving in the war, you know, the same age that I am now, and you just really don't understand how real that is until you're there and you see all those names on the walls, and just, you know, not really getting to thank them for what they've done. And us going there to, you know, look at that wall means something, but it doesn't mean half as much as what they did for us. And, you know, it's, to put it into perspective, it's, you know, kind of what's going on in the Middle Eastern right now, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and how I know people who are overseas now and, you know, trying to protect our rights and things like that. It's just, it's really surreal. And being at that wall down there with JD and everybody, it just really makes you appreciate how lucky you are. On the way to DC, JD kept asking me what it was I wanted to see the most, and, you know, what I was excited about going to Washington for. And once I told him I was most excited about the White House, he was telling me, oh, well, I'll throw you over the fence, you'll get a real good look at it then. And
I can't wait to chuck Dylan over the White House fence. I'll write a song about it.
I knew he was joking, but, you know, he said it a couple times, and I was kind of hoping that my seat in the van was secured.
Yeah, Karen, we sacrificed the boy.
But I knew it was. I was in good hands with them, and we were even joking about maybe getting some good publicity for Texas Red out of the whole ordeal. You know, oh, Texas Red here in Washington throws a boy over the fence and causes big mayhem in the nation's capital.
Said he wanted to see the White House, so we thought we'd give him a first-hand look-see.
Being in Washington, we got to see the Lincoln Memorial right next to the Washington Monument, when we were right next to the Veterans Memorial Wall. You know, even took a walk over to the Jefferson Memorial, which was a nice view of, you know, the Washington. You could see the tip of the White House from over at the Jefferson Memorial, which was nice. And I kept telling them I wanted to see the White House, and, you know, as we're wrapping things up and headed towards Pennsylvania Avenue, sure enough, just a block away, we see the presidential motorcade hop out, and all the motorcycles start flying down the street, and Secret Service hanging out the windows and watching all the people passing us. And it was pretty cool, you know, something I'd never seen before. I wasn't really expecting to see anything like that. And although, you know, they shut down the street after that and we weren't able to go to the White House, you know, at least we were able to see Michelle Obama leaving, and we suspect she was probably just going out to Walmart or some girly thing, you know, who really knows what she was doing. Oh no, I had a great time going on the trip from, you know, Indiana to Columbus to Maryland to DC and back again. It was a great time. I'm glad I was asked to go on this trip. I'd say yes again in a heartbeat. You know, a lot of things moved me that I really didn't expect them to. Just appreciating the ability to go, you know, across the world and across the country and be able to sightsee. Standing where Dr. Martin Luther King himself gave a speech to hundreds of thousands of people at the Lincoln Memorial was something that I really didn't expect to hit me the way it did. You know, once I was there, I kind of realized, you know, how many people it takes to fill that area. And when I was there must have been 1,000 or so people, a couple thousand people there. But, you know, when Dr. King was giving that speech, there must have been hundreds of thousands of people, and you know, it's something like that that changes the whole shape of our nation and just changes my whole life before I even knew it. And being there really made the whole trip worth it, and I'm very glad I got to go on the trip.